Welcome to Just Settled. Today we have an incredible new guest here, Joseph Gates, personal injury lawyer from Little Rock, Arkansas. Joseph, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, and this was an interesting case you were kind of talking to me a little bit about before we got on, so we can dive into it. I'll let you kind of go into all the details and introduce the context and what happened. How did you first learn about this case? Can you kind of give us the top-down overview of what happened and what were your initial thoughts when it kind of came across your desk?
Sure. So I was working with a firm in Atlanta, Georgia, Cash Krugler, and they had a similar case connected to this that we'll talk about here in a minute, where essentially there are home elevators, and the problem with them is that they leave too much room between the chassis and the door. So I want you to picture in your mind, you are going into this home that has an elevator. Instead of what you see like the doors that close in, like at a hotel or something, they actually have a closet door that shuts, and that's the door. So in between walking into the elevator and closing the closet door is like an old timey, I don't know, things that you see like on old TV where you can like shut it, and like accordion style thing to shut it, and that's actually how it goes up.
Yeah,
So the issue was between the closet door, or like a door that you have in your house, and that chassis was leaving too much space for kids to get trapped in. So this particular case involves where this elevator would always home, which means it doesn't matter after it's in use, it always go back to the second floor. It just resided on the second floor for whatever reason. That was programmed that way. So these guys had a case before where like a 10-year-old boy got trapped in there. I may be wrong on the ages, but either way, he got stuck in there, and when the elevator got called back down, it caused an injury and crushed him, left him paralyzed. So they had experience with that. And then another case happened in Little Rock, Arkansas, where a 2-year-old boy, same situation, elevator stayed at the second floor. He opened the door. You know, the closet door was supposed to be locked at all times, but this one got unlocked. And so then he got trapped in between. When the elevator came back down, trying to get it open, he got stuck, and he actually was suffocated to death. The elevator got stuck on top of him. And it was a really tragic case because mama was right there, could hear her son crying and like panicked and everything, and she couldn't get the door open. And so she heard her son die right in front of her, more or less between the door, and she couldn't do anything about it. So it wasn't a crush injury, but it was a suffocation. So it was a pretty brutal way to go for a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
So this has been a known problem, that there's too much room in between the doors and the chassis. Okay. And the manufacturer had been put on notice before this event. But this particular one, after we litigated it up, actually had some movement with the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And so we can go into all that. But that's the lay of the land of how this case got started.
Yeah, wow, that is horribly tragic, obviously. And it sounds like, these clients were lucky to come across you to kind of help them with this. When you first learned about this particular case that you were brought on to for this, did you have specific concerns on uncertainties about the potential outcome or kind of challenges that were going to come up in this case?
Well, the one main concern was it was a foreign manufacturer. So we had to work through a German company that created this product and then sold it through an American subsidiary. So wading through all the Hague Convention and all the logistics with dealing with the foreign company was alarming, to say the least. And then from just the case itself, I was real concerned about, what were they going to blame mama? I mean, were they going to blame the caretaker? I think I think it happened at this boy's grandmother's house. I was concerned about were they going to blame the people for not properly watching the kids, which I think was just add insult to injury when it was a known problem.
Of course. What were the client's expectations kind of coming into the case? Obviously, there's no world where any restitution makes up for what happened here. It sounds, I can't even imagine it. But in terms of what they were, it's a wrongful death case, right? Ultimately, what kind of expectation in terms of, a judgment or a settlement were you thinking when you went in here?
Their main reason to fight was to prevent this from happening again. So once they found out, when they started to do their own research to see if this had happened before, the mom was actually a lawyer, had experience at the appellate court, and she, searched nationwide to find the right team, found the Atlanta guys, who then found us. So once she found out that this has been a known problem, and in that other case that those guys, Andy and Dave, trying to get the Consumer Product Safety Commission to ban the home elevators before our event that I worked on happened. They were unsuccessful just because of the red tape. And so once she found out about that, she was like, "No, please, God, let this be the last one." Yeah. And to her credit, even through the litigation, after the litigation was over, she kept fighting for her son and her son's memory. And it was successful at the Consumer Product Safety Commission that these elevators are now banned in the United States.
Well, that's a good thing. Obviously, what were some of you mentioned kind of a unique challenge was that this was a foreign company. You said Germany, I think you had to go through in terms of bringing them to court or whatever. But in terms of more typical opposition or obstacles, what were some of those that you kind of anticipated and did come up in this case as it kind of progressed?
Well, anytime you deal with a products case, cost is always a concern. Trying to find the right engineers to help explain the story, and we found some good ones, and they're proud of their work. So there's always a cost concern on that. I mean, like I said, I was concerned about them blaming mom. In Arkansas, we're a comparative fault state, which means if a plaintiff is 50% at fault, you don't get a recovery. So I was concerned that they were going to try to put blame on her, or, even the kid, for putting himself in that position. So there were some hurdles with that. Those were my main concerns.
Okay. In terms of the timeline of this case, from start to finish, when you first got the call or it first came in to when it settled, or you got to completion, what did that look like in terms of overall timeline?
Well, I hate to say a big case. I mean, a big case is usually something horrible, bad event happened. So with that, I mean, companies like to fight tooth and nail to preserve their cash and not to pay out even their insurance carriers too. So from the time it happened until resolution was 2.5, 3 years maybe. So there were lots of depositions. I mean, candidly, it took a long time to get the inspection done on the front end. Even though the homeowner was a family member, the homeowner's insurance company hired a lawyer who was even though he didn't have a dog in the fight, he was a little bit obstructionist about getting us access to the home. So there was a delay in that, delay in getting the complaints and serving all the defendants, and then starting taking depositions. And so it took some time, but it eventually got to where it needed to.
Okay. At what point during that timeline did you realize that a settlement was likely in this case? Did it go to court, and did the settlement come out of court, or did it settle outside?
No, it resolved before jury trial. I mean, it took having the jury setting. We didn't settle on like the courthouse steps or nothing like that. It really took after the expert depositions, and they went well enough. And then they just knew, especially with the prior event and not just their case, but there were other cases across the country. They knew that this was going to be a punitive case. And so it really took working it up, though, getting through depositions and showing them that we were ready for it to actually get to where it needed to.
Gotcha. How did that negotiation process unfold? I'm assuming, I know in all of these cases, the defendant, or I don't know if there was insurance company involved in this. I'm sure they try to minimize compensation because that's typically par for the course. How did you advocate for your client's interests, and kind of what did those negotiations look like?
Well, I mean, how the event happened was, I mean, it's about as brutal as a parent can go through to be right there, and then powerless to stop it. But we really, in addition to that, it was using what we call OSIs, other similar incidences, to bolster knowledge and notice that this is a known problem. You should have made a change, and that's what really drives the punitive aspect in these types of cases.
Okay. Um, how did everything end up? What was the final outcome of the settlement, and how did that?
Yeah.
Obviously, again, there's no way to make this good for a client in this case, but you said that they banned the elevators. Obviously, that was a big part of it. What can you speak to what the actual settlement was, or?
No, well, there's a confidentiality of the amount of the settlement. So, confidentiality is a topic for it that we could discuss right now. Generally, especially in products liability cases and other consumer aspect cases, I loathe confidentiality, except for, I can be comfortable with about the money, because that's ultimately the client's decision on that. The world doesn't need to know, how much they received. Well, especially when a family member had been tragically killed. But we would not agree to any type of confidentiality about not being able to tell the story. And so, I mean, the understanding was we're going to continue with the Consumer Product Safety Commission all the way through, and using this story in addition to the other ones to push for the recall.
Yeah, and that obviously is the biggest thing in terms of this outcome, is that this incident cannot happen again from this product, because now it's not allowed. So that's a great thing. So, well, thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing this with us. I do appreciate you being here. And yeah, this was a tough one, but hope you return on the show. And again, Joseph Gates, Little Rock, Arkansas, incredible, obviously personal injury, wrongful death attorney. If you have any cases that you need help with, I'm sure you are the person to go to there.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, and thank you for letting me share this story.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joseph.